everybody. We're here with Abril from Sabor A Baja. She grew up in Ensenada, Mexico.
I did.
And she is she's a cultural influencer. She's been running Sabor A Baja for about a year. And before that, she was actually a psychologist. So we'll talk about how she grew up and got into, being a cultural influencer and what she's doing now. So we're excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, first of all. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah.
And to get to share a little bit of what Sabor A Baja is with all of you here.
No, we're excited.
Thanks.
So just start telling us about how you grew up, where you grew up, your parents, your background.
I was actually born in New Mexico, in Albuquerque. And my parents are scientists. So they were studying their doctorates and their PhDs over there. So by the time I was 5, they moved back to Mexico. And we came to Ensenada because Ensenada holds the biggest amount of scientists per capita. So they found a job in there, and I grew up in there. That's the reason. But they're from central Mexico, both of them. Yeah. And so when I was growing up, I just loved to write. So that's my first motivation, is writing, and Sabor A Baja is a lot about writing. So because that's what I enjoy doing. But I also, now that I have to remember all like my past, I started noticing that since I was very little, I was very crazy. I love entertaining. And being my parents a pair of kind of awkward scientists, we didn't have a lot of friends coming over when I was growing up. So those little times that there was people in my house, I was all about like, let's make some food and let's do this and let's do that. So, and I can trace those memories back like
to when you were tiny,
like 10 years old. Yeah. So then, but then life came, and I had a long line of professions to explore, because it took me about 15 years to finish my career. So I started with communication. Well, first I started by studying physics, like my dad, because I was 18 years old. I was young and confused. I didn't know what to do. And so I started with physics. And so I lasted there 1 month.
Yeah. You just didn't like it? Or?
No, it's like if you're not, no. Like I was just following my parents' steps.
Yeah.
But at the time there, like I went to the school, and it was like, what am I doing here? This is obviously not for me.
Did your parents ever push you in that direction, or was it?
My dad did.
Okay.
My dad was all about science and math and physics. And so, I feel like, in a way, I was kind of pressured to follow their steps because that was what they knew. And being, sometimes being a scientist makes you a little narrow-minded in a way, like you do what you do and that's it. There's not a lot of space for socialization
or creativity.
They're creative in their own way, but it's all about numbers and science and the whiteboards with the, you know, like if you go to my dad's office or my mom's office, you're gonna find those big cliche whiteboards with the bunch of numbers. Yeah, the formulas. So I grew up in that environment. So I think that at 18, not everyone knows. You're still a kid in a way. So right now I see kids 18 and I'm like, you're just a kid.
Yeah.
So when my time was, then I thought, well, I'm gonna just be a physicist, I guess. I'm good at math, average good. But no, that wasn't for me. So then I went to study communications.
Okay.
And that's when I went to live abroad. So I was away from my house, and that was a big deal for me.
Where did you live?
In Mexicali.
Okay.
Which is like a neighbor city from Ensenada. It's not right next to it, but it's pretty close. It's like a 4-hour drive.
Okay.
So I think that was an important part of my life because that made me grow up in a way. And be faced with all these experiences that you must have to learn about the world and dangers and stuff like that. And so I kept going on that career because what I wanted it was to stay there.
Yeah.
But I was like an average student. I didn't do anything passionate about, and I got confused and enrolled in a lot of situations, both good and bad. So I had a breaking point like a few years after.
Okay.
And so I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I have to go back, touch base. And so I went back to Ensenada and started what is now my degree, which is psychology.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you like a therapist for a long time, or were you like, well, in psychology, were you doing research or?
Yeah, I was doing social psychology.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my area of expertise. And I did work a little bit with a therapist. And then I was working in schools and schools with low income back in Mexico and providing resources for them. And then I got married and moved to Mexicali. And then I got pregnant and life started to happen took me in another direction for the longest time. I was just being a mom. And then when my first son was born, well, 3 years after that, we find out that he was autistic. So by the time everything was unraveling, I already had my daughter. She was 1 year old. And so being a mom, a young mom with two kids so close together, and then at the same time, one of them developing symptoms of autism, it put me in a very, very strange place.
Yeah. So did that force you to kind of go away from your career and then just focus at being at home and being with them?
Completely. When we first find out that my son was autistic, I think my background and my career helped me get to that point fast, like looking for symptoms and knowing what to do, where to go. But when that happened and we moved here to the United States, I just forgot about psychology and all my dreams and what I was expecting to do with that. And I just dive into researching and knowing more about my son's condition. And a lot of years passed by, and then, but the bug started itching.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to do something. I need to bring awareness, and I wanted to bring awareness about acceptance.
Yeah.
Because that was what I was dealing with. All the process of accepting my new normal, my new reality. And so that's when I started my nonprofit, which is called Parents for Neurodiversity Network. And that's in English, and in Spanish is Red de Padres por la Neurodiversidad. And so what we did back then was whatever I learned and all the resources I could bring to Mexico, I would go and give workshops. I was doing conferences. I was invited to speak to all these parents. I work with DIF, which is kind of social services here back in Mexico. And I was working there for 2 years nonstop, and I would go every weekend and I would contribute as much as I could. I was working one-on-one with families, a lot of workshops, and online, sharing information. But then another bug started bugging me. So part of autism, it's a very big truth that I wanted to share with everyone, is that it's not about us parents. And sometimes we tend to do that in the disability community. We tend to kind of twist it and make it all about us and how this is affecting us and how hard our life is.
Yeah.
And we're not we're not taking under account that the person that is really struggling with all these in the world is actually
Yeah.
the autistic or the kid with autism.
So do you see a lot of people of color take it a little different than somebody, because I feel like growing up, right, my mom was always like, nothing's wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
She's really hard on me. Don't cry about this. Don't do, and do you see that also factoring into how people kind of, when they find out their kid might have a disability or
Yes.
might be growing a little different than everybody else? Is that something that comes into play? Is that something that you talked about too, or?
Totally. Like that was part of what I was doing over there.
Yeah.
Like, so I had the opportunity of working with parents with kids recently diagnosed. That was my area of work when I was doing the nonprofit thing. And so it's very hard. The cultural impact is so different. Like, I really appreciate that I had the opportunity of moving here and learning from this amazing country about all those issues. But when you go back home and you start to see the way people think over there, and you start to acknowledge the cultural implications of having a kid with a disability back in Mexico. Like, people don't, most of the time they don't take them out, they want to keep them. I mean, it's changing, but very, very slowly. So
Yeah.
my goal was trying to help that move
Speed up that process.
speed up a little bit,
Yeah.
like faster, right? Because it was very hard, and part of me stopping it because I got drained in a way. Like, it was like, sometimes I felt like, oh my gosh, like, here I go again trying to
Yeah.
explain to you that you need to start looking at this condition from your kid's point of view. And that was all I was doing. Like, yeah, it's hard. I know, I'm a mom, I'm dealing with stuff, but it's even harder for them.
Yeah.
So let's kind of grow a little bit of empathy and start like looking at this condition like a holistic situation, and we can get there faster.
Right.
And so, I mean, a lot of parents were open to the idea of, okay, let's do this because of love, because that's what moves us all. Like, even when you're thinking the bad thoughts, I'm pretty sure being a parent is love what it's motivating them, but in a wrong way. I don't know if I'm
No, yeah,
okay.
no, yeah. It's one of those things that, like, my mom for example, my mom loved me so much that she didn't want to feel like she was a bad mom, and so she didn't go and get free groceries when we actually needed to eat. She wanted to fight for us
Yeah.
and do it herself, when the best option was probably going out and getting that help, right? So yeah, definitely understand your point, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of that too. Like, we as parents are challenged by these situations every day, because no matter what you do, you're gonna feel you're a bad parent.
Yeah.
And I guess in the same background you're describing, it's the same. Like, you need help, you need to reach out, but at the same time you're afraid, like, you're gonna be judged.
Yeah.
That somebody's gonna tell you, no, you're doing this, the whole thing is wrong, and at the same time you don't want to expose your kids.
Yeah.
So it's tricky.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I got the opportunity to touch a few families. I end up working with like 32 to 34
amazing.
families. So yeah, I hope that whatever I brought to them made them realize things that they didn't know before. That was my only intention.
Yeah. Well,
at the
it
time.
sounds like you were able to combine your itch for entrepreneurship and
Kinda, yeah.
your psychology background, right?
So that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like, I had the bug, like I was telling you, but at the same time I was dealing with all these emotions. And I want to be very clear that at the time I was doing that, I myself was in grief.
Yeah.
I was looking for acceptance of my own situation. So that was something like, and then I'm a psychologist, so I wanted to bring everything to the table and grow with the people I was working. That at the end of the day, I just can say that helped me grow and heal.
Yeah. So you got the itch again. How long? So you did that for 2 years, 3 years, the nonprofit?
It was 2 years.
2 years.
2
And
years.
and then what made you decide to pivot and change what you were doing?
So first of all, I think my own healing left me in peace. Like, I think I'm done here because I took out of this all that I can get, and I grew and I learned, and now it's time for me to just start focusing on new things about myself. And that's another thing that happened. Like, when I was doing all of this and all of that, I think that I was doing it for other people. I was doing it for my son, and I was doing it for the people of Mexico, and I was doing it for the world. And I remember this quote I kept reading, and I thought it was me, that it said something about, I'm not gonna change my kid for the world, I'm gonna change the world for my kid.
Yeah.
So I used to live by that motto. Every day I woke up and it's like, it's time to change the world for my kid, and I would get up and do it.
Yeah, it's great motivation.
It is, but it wasn't, I learned in the way. I don't know, something happened to me, like a moment of clarity maybe, when I started noticing that I was leaving myself behind. And you can see it in every part of me. I was like, I wasn't getting nicely dressed in the morning. I think I was depressed in a way, like I was just doing this and that for other people.
But not for yourself.
And not for myself. And the itch was there and kept growing, and the nonprofit wasn't like feeding that need in a way. And one day I just woke up and realized, oh my gosh, I'm 35 and I haven't done anything for me, and I have a daughter too that I need to inspire, and I need to show her. I don't want her to remember me like this mom just like waiting for life to happen and not doing anything with it.
Yeah. So that pushed you to
Yes.
start Sabor A Baja,
Well,
or was it something before that?
So that pushed me to give the first step to dive in, right? But really what motivated me is that when I came here, I wasn't much of a cook when I first came here 8 years ago. And I was like, I mean, I always loved to cook and I love to eat. Who doesn't, right? And I was like, yeah, like doing stuff like a house mom. But then I moved here and I started noticing that Mexican food is a big thing here. And I don't say that in a good way. Like,
they're missing out.
Yeah, like, so I grew up in a city that happens to be one of the meccas of Mexican culinary.
So what pushed you to start Sabor A Baja after you were done doing your nonprofit? Like, what motivated you to do that?
Yeah, so what happened at the time is that, well, when we moved here 8 years ago, I came to realize that Mexican food is a big issue, like a big problematic, if I do say so myself. And the reason is because, so I come back, I moved from a city that it's a very big food destination in Mexico. So everyone knows that Ensenada is one of the capitals of food in Mexico. Like, we have a lot to offer in that department.
Yeah.
So we're back there, we're very used to good food.
Yeah. So you came here and you were like, what is this food?
Yeah. Exactly that. So I came here and I knew the basics.
Yeah.
And I loved to cook, so I was creative and everything, but I was more exploring like gourmet food, because all the Mexican traditional food is very good over there, and you can go to, like, no matter if it's a food stand or a fancy restaurant, you know you're gonna eat good food,
Yeah.
quality food, right? And so it's very common for us in Ensenada to just like, oh, what do we eat? Oh, let's go get some tortas. And you go buy your torta and then you eat it at home, or you can go eat it there standing up. And that applies to tacos and to every single Mexican dish you can find there for a good price, and you'll eat it. So we tend to eat a lot outside. And so I was like experimenting in the gourmet food and salads and
So was that just at home?
Yeah, at home, like for me and my family. And then when we moved here, we're like, okay, let's go eat some fish tacos. I guess we're gonna try that Rubio's place there. Can we say brand?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's try that, and we go there, and I'm like, what's this? Okay, bad luck. Let's go to this other place. They say it's Mexican food. Let's try that other big brand. And what is this? This is not a taco. This is a folded tostada. What's going on?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we in Mexico know about Americanized Mexican food, but when you live here, you start scratching the walls looking for places to eat. And I have found along these 8 years a few places here and there, but what motivated me was two things. First, the lack of authentic Mexican food in the street for an affordable price, and two, the fact that whenever I invited American friends over and I cooked Mexican food, they all were like, you have to put a restaurant, or you have to sell this. And so at the time, with my personal situation, to me, like putting up a restaurant or start working on that was like impossible. Mm-hmm. Plus, I have a lot of friends in the restaurant industry, so I know how
the struggle.
Yeah, I know. And with my personal situation with my kids and growing up and autism in the mix, I can't right now do that.
Yeah.
Plus, if we go back to the beginning of this interview, writing is what I really, really...
That's your love.
That's my love.
Yeah.
So, so then I was like, well, I can write a blog. I think I can do a good job writing a blog, getting my recipes out there, giving tips about where to buy foods. Oh, because another thing I realized, when I was eating out and I saw the concept of Mexican food here, my first thought was, well, maybe they don't have the ingredients to do authentic Mexican food. And then I go to stores, like regular stores, and I see that everything's there, and we have a lot of big markets and places where they sell everything Mexican.
Yeah.
So ingredients weren't an issue, right? So then what was the issue? And I think it's cultural. Mm-hmm. It's just like people start doing things in a different way, and that's fine. I mean, I do appreciate everyone doing what they think they like. The thing is that we do have the ingredients. We have all the ingredients to make authentic Mexican food here in the States. And so what I think it's more of a cultural thing. It's a way things have been cooked like for a long time, and so people
are used to it, right?
Are used to it. But what it's very impressive is that now in my blog, for example, I get all these comments from second generation Mexicans or third generation Mexicans, and they're like, wow, I'm so happy because I didn't learn from my nana when I was growing up, and now I don't know how to do this and that, so thank you. And so I think helping in that way, it's a service in that way, because people love enchiladas,
Yeah.
but they got like lost in how to prepare them. Another thing that's affecting authentic Mexican food is all these pre-made products and the time, right? Like we don't have time to make a salsa from scratch.
Yeah.
So we go and buy the canned one and we just cook with that. But there's a lot of people that want to touch back with their roots and to start cooking food the way it was used to decades ago, right? And so now I think Sabor A Baja brings them that opportunity to, with simple, easy to make, easy to follow recipes, you can experience Mexican flavors.
Yeah. No, and I think that's there's a big education gap, right? Like a lot of people are they just know one way, right? And it's not anybody's fault, and it's not, you know, it's just that's the way it is here, and it's different where, you know, it's coming from. And so that education piece is super important. And so what does Sabor A Baja consist of? Is it a blog? Is it, I know you said you're writing a book. You haven't mentioned that yet. Is it, you know, these other things that you're doing? I know you're, you know, so you're a big social media person, right? And you post a lot about the culture in Baja, or, you know, in Mexico, or, you know, in places you go. So what is Sabor A Baja now?
Okay, so Sabor A Baja has been a lot of things, and it's changing every day, and that's what I really love about it, because it's widening to a lot of opportunities. So right now, Sabor A Baja is a website. It's a blog, and it's I'm very big in Instagram right now. So I put a lot of effort on that, and I try from Instagram to send people to my website. And what I do is I help you experience Mexican flavors and Mexican culture through food and travel. And so what I do is based mostly in Baja California and Baja California Sur, but I'm starting to explore other states too. And my food, it's Mexican in general. But recently, because of the book that I'm writing right now, which is Journey Through the Peninsula, we call that in Baja the ultimate road trip, because you go from crossing the border in Tijuana all the way to Los Cabos.
And that's like southern part.
The tip of
Mexico.
Of Mexico, of the peninsula. So that's 2 states you cover. It's Baja California and Baja California Sur. So I've been doing that trip for years. So I've been documenting, not even knowing I was doing that. Like every year we take pictures, we go places, we camp, I take my kids, I take my dogs. It's the ultimate experience, and it's so easy to achieve. It's just like a good car and go. And so I'm doing it this time, but I'm bringing a small crew. And so we're documenting, and I'm gonna try food all around the highway. So the book is called The Roads to Baja, which it's because the food that you find in the road. This place here and this place there, and it's gonna consist of like a cultural overview and my approximation to the recipes I'll be trying, and then the landscapes, and it's gonna be like 80% pictures. Oh no, like 70% pictures and 30% writing.
But I'll be able to experience what you experience, right?
Exactly.
Like I'll be able to see the food you're eating, how authentic it is, all the scenery.
And then you're gonna have my recipe for you to try. It's like if we're eating langosta, which is lobster. So if we're eating lobster in Puerto Nuevo, which is very known, So I will give you my approximation of that dish.
Yeah.
So then if you cannot go there and try it for yourself, but you love cooking, at least you can do it yourself.
Yeah. So along this journey, starting a nonprofit, starting your entrepreneur venture now, Sabor A Baja, what struggles, or like not struggles, but like how empowering is it to be a woman of color in this space, doing your own thing, being a mom, doing so many things, and does that ever get in your head where
Yes.
you think you can't do it, or something kind of blocks you, and how do you get over that?
That happens to me all the time because of three factors, I think. First of all, I'm a mom. So that's hard. And I guess for every mom trying something, it's going to be hard because you get the mom guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And right now that I'm growing and I'm starting to move around and I've been asked to go places and review them and stuff like that, I have to leave my kids and I have to, or I cannot, like, it's as simple as this. I couldn't be in the parent committee this year at school.
Yeah.
And so that's like, oh my gosh, the guilt. And then I'm afraid they're going to judge me. Like, what is she doing that she's not here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get that all the time in my head, but I need to remind myself that by setting an example, I'm doing more for my kids than just being there and not really being there.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I struggle. And then being a woman. Just generally, like, I think it's hard for us just to think that we can achieve something.
Yeah.
It's just like you need to convince yourself every day that you are worth it. You can do it. They got nothing on you.
Yeah.
Like, you are smart, you are strong, and you can accomplish.
So you got to talk yourself up every day.
Yes, every day, because I get doubts.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I just want to stop if something is not working the way I thought it would work, and I'm kind of alone in a way. I have my husband that he's my stone. He is there always asking me and pushing me forward. And also, I happen to grow in a community lately of women with going through the same situations I am. So that has helped me a lot, like push me forward.
So you found kind of a good community and support.
A tribe.
Right?
Yeah.
Tribe.
And you know what? I'm so thankful for it, because that, I think, has been the key for me from where I thought I could be to where I actually am.
Yeah.
And it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
If I think about it, it's been not even Sabor A Baja it's the success compared to what has been finding those girls.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. It's something that we see more and more of, right? And I think it's needed, right? It's all these women, it's all these people of color coming together to put on events for people of color, for women, specifically to help, because like we talked about earlier, it's like there's cultural differences, but there are also, differences in just having a different skin tone, right? Like there's a mindset that you have to go through, and it's great that we have like that support group.
So that takes me to my number 3 struggle, which is, so it's being a mom, it's being a woman, and then being Latina. To me, I think that's been the greatest struggle personally, in a way, because of my English. I get so self-conscious about my English. Sometimes I'm like, I wish I could just do this in Spanish, but at the same time, I'm pushing myself, and I learn every day. I'm studying English. I do things. I write, and one of my goals is writing my book in English. And I will have the help of an editor and everything, but I want to do it in English, because what I feel is like there's nothing you cannot learn if you put your mind into it. I mean, I'm not gonna learn to fly a plane, really, but in the things that you can actually learn that can help you and can launch you like far away from where you are, you have control of that.
Yeah.
So always keep learning, and that's a lot of what Sabor A Baja is too.
Yeah.
So I'm learning new things, and I want to share those things with you, and that comes back to my own person.
Yeah.
And learning English and being fluent in English, because what happens to me is that I get stuck.
Yeah.
I have this like, whenever I want to say something, and then the words just, see, like right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're almost trying to meet everybody, like you're having people meet you in the middle, and then you're meeting them in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Like you are bringing the culture to them, but you also have to,
Exactly.
you know, learn their culture, or not learn, but like learn English, for example.
Yeah.
But it's also hard. I mean, you start from, like, people start at level 0 and then they work up. You're at like level -2, right? And you have to just work to get to level 0.
Oh, yeah.
So it's amazing that you've been able to do, you know, even writing your book in English, right? That's great.
I think so too. Like, it's funny because I do, like you said, I love learning from this culture, and I think I have a lot to be thankful for this culture, but also I love the culture of Latinos here.
Yeah.
I'm in love with the culture of Latinos here because we're so empowered, and we want to help other Latinos, and we're like, yeah, bring it on. Like,
Yeah.
it's our time right now. That's how I feel. So that gets me going every day too. Like, I'm doing this for everyone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in a way that it's like something I feel very proud about, being a Latina in this century here in the United States.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Like I said, it's amazing what you're doing, and you know, it's definitely inspiring. Where do you see Sabor A Baja in 3 to 5 years?
Well, in 3 or 5 years, I see Sabor A Baja like everywhere, to be honest. I want Sabor A Baja in every kitchen. I want cookbooks. I want travel and food books like The Roads to Baja. I want to go other places. I even wouldn't mind having a show.
Yeah.
Or selling my idea to a big producer.
Yeah.
That's, I think, it's still gonna be about food, and it's still gonna be about Mexican travel, but I see it leaning a lot towards the reading and writing and all that.
Yeah.
Content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your love.
My love. Like I dream of, I'm 5 years from now, I see myself becoming an author, and a very recognized one.
Yeah. No,
I really hope
you will. You will do it.
Thank you.
I have no doubt. And so, what would you say to entrepreneurs, or aspiring entrepreneurs, maybe somebody who wants to do what you're doing, or just wants to go out and do their own thing and get away from, you know, maybe something like physics that they didn't like, or, you know, what would you say to them now, looking back?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the first thing I would say is never give up on your dreams. It's never too late. So if somebody would ask me 3 years from today, like 3 years ago, you're gonna be doing all this, and you're gonna be in an interview and with a stand, and you were gonna have like 6,000 followers on Instagram, and people will want to know about you, invite you to restaurants and all that, I would say like, no way.
Yeah.
But because back then I think I was giving up on my dreams and on myself. And if my mom has taught me something, is that you're never too old to do what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so that is, for me, my greatest word of advice for any girl out there, any lady that it's like feels stuck, that feels that being a mom and not doing anything else, like just mom, housewife, all that is not enough. I would say you can do it. Go out there and simple steps.
Yeah.
One at a time. Like just build something from scratch, like my recipes. You first need to add the tomatoes, and then you bring in the onions, and then the garlic, and then you let time do its thing.
Yeah.
Don't rush it either.
Yeah.
I feel sometimes when I was starting, I felt rushed in so many different ways, and that at least in my own person, that's something that will make me freeze.
Yeah.
So take it your own way, as slowly or as fast as you are used to, but always make sure you're taking steps forward.
Yeah. No, that's great advice, and definitely I like what you said about time, right? Don't rush it. Everybody's on different schedules.
Yes.
Just because somebody's doing it quickly doesn't mean that you have to do it quickly, right? But yeah, no, thank you for coming on and interviewing with us, and thank you for sharing your story. And hopefully we wish you nothing but all the success.
Thank you so much. And if I can say something, just like some products are coming, because so even though if you see Sabor A Baja is not a brand of products, like what I sell is actually words, right?
Yeah.
And pictures. But so we're gonna have some products in the mix. We're gonna add some products to the mix to help us move faster in the economic side of it. And so there's gonna be some cooking products that we're gonna bring from Baja, and we're gonna start selling them. So
where can they find those products?
It's gonna happen on my website.
Okay.
Also in my Instagram account, and I'm gonna be traveling all around San Diego as soon as I get everything going on.
Yeah.
So it's not, I'm still deciding what exactly to get. We're on that part.
Yeah.
But so another advice is that find a lot of ways you can potentially get an income from what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur trying to do something different, and
you got to make money.
you got to make money. Like right now, I haven't made, I've received a lot of free meals.
Yeah.
But something like, oh, this is my first check
Yeah.
from this project, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And if I want to grow, I do need to get some money back. So that's another thing I would recommend, like explore with people that know how to do that, because sometimes we can have ideas, but if we don't know how to do it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So reach out to experts that can help you materialize what you're doing into profit.
Yeah. No, that's great. And then so your website is on here. Saborabaja.com, and then follow you on Instagram at Sabor A Baja.
Yeah.
And is there anything else that we should be on the lookout other than the products, or is that
the book, which
book?
Is coming next year? Yeah.
Nice.
And I do have an Instagram account for the book. It's at The Roads to Baja.
Nice.
So if you want to check it out, it's just like a few posts right now because I'm still
in the beginning stages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's gonna as we grow and as we make the book, it's gonna widen
Awesome.
up. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for
Really
having
appreciate
me.
your time.
Thanks.